Welcome to FridayNightGlory.com. We have our Week 3 podcast, Texas High School Football. I'm joined by Chase Shelton. How are you doing today, Chase?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. We had another great week of some Texas High School football, and we did a Player of the Week polls this week, and we had some fantastic players, Damian Martinez, Sergio Perez, and Kewan Lacey, as well as Lee Sutton. Those were the four. And Lee Sutton of Denton Geyer is our Friday Night Glory Player of the Week. So we'll get him a T-shirt, and congrats to Lee Sutton on winning the award. And also, Chase, we were at Louisville versus Timber Creek on Thursday. And we got to watch one of our nominees, Damian Martinez, play. Just kind of talk about how that Timber Creek versus Louisville game went.
Yeah, I mean, it was highly anticipated. Unfortunately, there was some injuries for both sides. Mika Megwa for Timber Creek was out. Of course, he's a big key in that offense. And then we didn't get to watch Armani Winfield, who is arguably one of the best receivers in the state. But besides that, it was still good football. Louisville did come out with a big victory. I think you and I both, I know we were talking a lot in between quarters that Louisville looks like they're going to be very dangerous this year. That offense, I mean, Damian Martinez, there was a reason why he was considered Player of the Week. 5 touchdowns in the first half, over 250 yards. I mean, that's something you don't see very often. And I truly think if it was a closer game and he played that second half, we could be talking about a record number game, to be honest. But no, it was a very great game. Louisville's defense looked very strong, in my opinion. Timber Creek, I know you were also saying that they're a young squad, so there's no reason they should have their heads down. They have plenty of potential in the later for this season or even next season. But that Louisville, that Fighting Farmers team is going to be something to watch this year. I'm calling it right now.
Definitely. I agree with you. We got to watch that offensive line go to work as well. Those are some big physical guys right there. And Damian Martinez, he's very underrated. You talked about him being a top 3 guy in the state. And, he definitely is that. The Oregon State commit, very underrated physical runner. It was great to watch him play. And then you talked about Timber Creek, that's a team that only lost to Rockwall Heath by 7 the week before, and Rockwall Heath almost beat Southlake last week. So you're like you said, they have nothing to keep their heads down about. It's just one of those games where Louisville had them from start to finish. And I think, like you said, Louisville, they're going to be very dangerous in the playoffs. They're going to be a team that I would probably pick to win that district right now that they're in.
Yeah, I truly, I mean, again, we still have plenty of weeks, but I would not be surprised if in 6-7 weeks we see them at the top. Last year they did very well, in my opinion. I watched them a couple of times, and I knew that they were getting a lot of their key players back. And yes, they will be very fun to watch this year. So if you're watching and you get the chance to see the Fighting Farmers, I highly recommend you go to a game in Louisville or wherever they're playing.
Definitely. That's a really exciting team to watch. And then, there were a lot of crazy, just ridiculous performances this past week. I mean, just talk about some guys that stood out to you.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to give a shout out because I did individual players, but real quick, I just want to give a shout out to the Geyers defense. Really, I guess you could say offense. Just we didn't get the chance to cover that game, but we knew that was probably the game of the week, and it did went into overtime. Geyer, you could say pulled the upset. You could just say got the victory. I'd take it either way, but it was a 14-7 Geyer win. They did a great job shutting out Ryan, or stopping Ryan, only 1 touchdown. But for key players, I've got 3 that kind of stuck in mind, all offensive. Number 3, Evan Stewart for Frisco Liberty. We talked about him in our very first podcast. The dude's a freak. They had a great 55-21 victory over Greenville, but he did, I believe, 11 receptions, I think 211 yards and a touchdown. I saw some highlights on Max Preps. There's just no way many DBs are going to stop him. And like I said, good luck this year to any DB guarding him. That's, like I said, that small performance he did is just a little bit of what he's got in the tank. I also want to give a shout out to Rockwall's quarterback, Brayden Locke. We all know about him. He's one of the best in the state, but they had a 75-28 victory over Dallas Jesuit. But he had a very first rough week one. Past week, he came back 26-38, over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns. Like I said, it was really a big victory. So you could say it was not all him, but he was a very big key factor. And my last player that I really want to give a shout out, we've already been talking about him, Damian Martinez. It's just hard not to 21 carries, 255 yards, and 5 touchdowns in the first half.
Wow.
And like I said, you can read about it, you can see the highlights, but when you're actually in person watching, like you and I, you're just doing this a lot. You're shocked by him. And like I've said, I think he is a top 3 running back in the state. And I don't know if he's a 3-star. I believe he's a 3-star. But he needs to be a 4-star very soon, in my opinion. So, and he's a really, really cool dude. We talked to him after the game, a very likable guy. So I think that's also a little personal, very chill, relaxed dude. I kind of like that. So those are my 3 big performers. It was very tough because week 2 was a great week. There was plenty of games, even that South Lake game. There was just plenty of great football this past week.
And there was a lot of guys who stood out. And some of the 3 guys that I saw stand out, this Orlando Scales, 8 rushing attempts for 193 yards and a touchdown. Just on 8 attempts, he averaged 20 yards per carry for Mansfield Summit. Just insane in their victory over crosstown rivalry Mansfield High. So, that was huge. And the fact, 8 carries for almost 200 yards is just an insane stat line to have.
That's Madden numbers right there.
It really is. Because you got a guy he's speedy. It's his first year starting at running back for Summit. Had a subpar first week, and then the second week gets 8 carries, 8 touches, and just goes off almost 200 yards in the touchdown. And my second guy, Sergio Perez from Garland High, he was 23 of 30 for 353 yards and 6 touchdown passes. Just insane numbers. 55-3 victory over Richland. Just insane numbers for the guy. He's just one of those guys. He gets better and better each year. He started since his sophomore year. South Dakota commit. He's very impressive, and he's just kept growing and getting better. And, he's got 10 touchdown passes in his first 2 games. So he's off to a really hot start for
very good start.
And then my last guy, I had to give this guy a shout out. Saturday night at the Catholic Bowl, just an insane game, triple overtime. Nolan versus Little Rock Catholic, 36-34. Nolan survived. Kewan Lacey, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns on 19 carries. Just impressive stat line for him. And he was physical. It took 4 or 5 guys to get him down. He kept running, and, they got that victory. It was a really impressive game. It was one of those games where 36-34, triple overtime, just really close. No one could really get a grasp of it, but he gave his team momentum, and I think that's one of the biggest factors that what's going to be this season for Nolan Catholic is given that he's just a sophomore too, and given that sophomore the ball, it's going to be really good for them, and so I think they're going to put together a great season. So now moving on from that, we're going to do some pick'ems of games this week. So I'm going to give you 10 games, and we're going to keep a record on this each week and see who gets more games. We're going to make this a running thing. So
all right.
It's going to be interesting. We have a lot of really good matchups this week as well. So I'm looking forward to that. So some week 3 games, we're going to start off with some schools in the area of, DFW area, and we'll work our way. We'll try to make it around to different areas. But to start off, I want to start off with, you have a Louisville team. They're playing the Lamar Vikings this week. What's your pick on that?
I've got to stick with Louisville. said that they probably will win their district. I think they are going to be dangerous in the 6A. Or I think they're in 6A, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
They
So
are.
yeah. So I personally believe that they could even give someone like Southlake a good run. Sorry, Lamar. It's going to be hard to stop Damian Martinez, but I've got Louisville staying undefeated still.
It will be hard for them to stop Damian Martinez. Lamar, they're off to a 0-2 start. They've lost to Trinity. They've lost last week as well to Waxahachie. So I got Louisville as well. Damian Martinez, just too much for that Lamar defense.
Yep.
And so another interesting game next week, we have Southlake Carroll versus Prosper. Now that's a very intriguing game. Who do you have in that one?
So I'm going to stick with the Southlake. I've liked what I've seen. Last week was a very close game. Kaden Anderson, though, I didn't get to watch all of it, but it seemed like he got a little taste of what good close football is going to be. He did well against Highland Park. Prosper, they've got a lot of talent. Their offense, I haven't got to see much of it. I do know they lost some key weapons from last year, but Southlake's defense is just ridiculous. And I'm going down to the basics, coaching. Southlake has one of the best coaching staffs, of course, with Riley Dodge. So I think it's going to be a very close game. Like, I would not be surprised if this goes into overtime, but I'm going to call at least I'm going to say a 6-point victory for Southlake.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Southlake as well. I think it's going to be a really close contested game. Prosper, they're well coached as well, but Southlake, like you said, some of the best coaches in the state. And I think Prosper, they have some of the best coaches in the state as well. It's going to be one of those chess match games. It's going to be close. And Southlake, they have some experience with that already. And I think, Kaden Anderson, he's just going to improve week by week. So I think it's going to be Southlake by 4, I'd say.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next one. Now this one, Euless Trinity versus Collieville Heritage. Collieville Heritage is off to an insane start. Trinity lost last week to Westlake, but they put it on Lamar. So, this is a difficult choice. Who are you going with?
It is. I'm going to go with Trinity. Last week, yes, they lost, but they played Westlake, who's probably the best team in Texas. So you really can't use that against them. Ollie Gordon, Kenny called it in week 1. He's Superman. And I saw a meme kind of thing earlier today where he was in both games, he was basically wrapped up and he escaped and scored. Collieville Heritage is a very talented team. I like Hogan Wasson a lot at the receiver, but I think Ollie Gordon is just a freak of nature. This is going to be another very close game. Again, it's going to be like the Southlake Prosper. I would not be surprised if it comes down to the final. Whoever gets the ball last, I believe, will win the game. But I'm not going to bet against Ollie Gordon. Not right now.
You think I would learn my lesson after betting against Ollie Gordon last year when they played Allen, but, I'm going to choose Collieville Heritage.
Okay.
I think Hogan Watson's got it this year. I'm going to choose the black and red in Grapevine, Collieville area, just because, they have a tremendous defensive line. Isaac Chabet, senior slot receiver / running back, he plays it all. He's a utility guy. I think he can be a real difference maker in the game as well.
He just committed today too, I believe, to Penn University. So
yeah,
congrats to that.
Yeah, congratulations to him. He's going to be coming with confidence after committing too, because it seems like players, they have a little bit more calm attitude
Absolutely.
after they commit, playing their senior year, knowing where they're going to college. So I think he's going to be a difference maker in that slot. And I'll say by 6, Collieville by 6. But you think, if they lose, Ollie, I'll never bet against you again. I promise. I promise. But this will only be the second time I bet against them. So, all right, moving on to the next game. Cedar Hill versus Allen. Both teams had some early losses. Both teams coming into this with a 1-1 record. You may say they're down this year, but maybe not. Maybe, there's a lot of season left. It's too early. And Atascocita, they're a great team. You got to give them credit where credit's due. But who do you got in this game?
Can you tell? Is it at Allen? I'm not sure for
It
sure.
is at Allen.
Yeah, Eagles are winning this game. They lost their first game at home, I believe, since the new stadium opened. I read one of the best streaks in football history. Allen is just their tradition is to win football games. I believe that last week they got a good taste. They unfortunately had a tough loss, but Cedar Hill, that's a very good matchup. I'm going to say it again. I think there's going to be another close game. Maybe not as close as the other two. It'll probably be a 2-possession game, I believe. But
Yeah.
Allen at home it's like playing Bama in Tuscaloosa. I mean, it's hard to win there. So Allen fans, they show up. They love their Eagles, and I'm going to stick with Allen on this week.
I think I'm going to stick with Allen as well. No way they lose 2 in a row at home after not losing one in that new stadium.
Exactly.
Cedar Hill, they have Cedric Harden at quarterback. He's still trying to figure things out. I just think Allen will be too much at home against Cedar Hill. And then you have, going into the next game, Justin Northwest versus Grapevine. Now, this is an interesting game. These are two teams on the rise. Grapevine, they were a little undermanned against Collieville Heritage in that battle.
Yeah.
But you have Justin Northwest with Jake Strong at quarterback, up and coming, junior stud quarterback. So who you have in this game?
Again, another tough one. I'm going to take Northwest. I watched Jake Strong in the off season at one of the camps, and I was very impressed with this dude. A very good quarterback, poised. Grapevine's got some talent though. Caleb Tejada, I really like him. He's a good running back, but I'm going to take Northwest on this one. I think it'll be another good game, but I'm going to take Northwest with the victory this week.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Justin Northwest as well, just because Jake Strong, he's a great leader, throws the deep ball well. I think he's going to pick that defensive Grapevine apart. I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Caleb Tejada is a great running back. We know what he can do, and I think he's going to be playing the full game this week. So I think he can put up some numbers. I think he's going to be really great in that game. I think he's going to have a really good game, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what they can do.
It's going to be a good week.
And moving on to the next game. All right, so this one, okay, so McKinney North versus Marshall. Now, Marshall's off to a pretty good start, but McKinney North, they beat Grand Prairie last week. They have some guys who can flat out play. So who are you going with in this matchup?
This is tough. I haven't got to really cover much of either team. I'm just going off what I've seen. I'm going to stick with McKinney North. I grew up near that. I kind of have a little soft spot for McKinney area. So Marshall is off to a very good start. I think McKinney North can pull it off, though. I think it's going to come down to the defense. Like I've always said, defense wins ball games. And I think it's going to be really who can get that key turnover in the game, which I think McKinney North can do. It's going to be very tough to stop Marshall, though, but I'm going to take McKinney North this week.
McKinney North's D-line, they're very physical. They played well against Westmore, Oklahoma a couple weeks back. But I'm going to go with Marshall. Marshall's put up a pretty impressive resume last year, and I think coming into this season, they're looking to build off what they did. And, they started the season off with turning some heads. I think they're going to get a win in a close game. If they can just kind of ride the run game, if they wash out the defense lineman of McKinney North, it's going to be a long night for them.
Yes.
And so this is a great game. Rockwall versus Lake Travis. Now, this is a pretty good game next on this week. So, you have Lake Travis versus Rockwall, another just tough matchup, two teams that are pretty dominant at what they do. Rockwall likes to air the ball out. They like to throw it around the park. So who do you have in this game?
This is tough because Lake Travis is such an iconic historical school. It's going to be a tough one, but they beat up Martin in week 1, and I'm going to take Lake Travis in this. I think this is going to be probably one of the closest. I've been saying all the games are going to be close, but I think this literally will come down to a field goal or maybe like a late touchdown. Brayden Locke, I had him as one of my top 3 players last week. I would not be surprised if he throws another 300-400-yard game, but the interceptions are a little scary. In the week 1, he had, I believe, 4, which he can overcome. I'm not saying it's going to defeat him, but Lake Travis, you can't make any mistakes. And I feel like if you make 1, just maybe even 2 mistakes, it can really mess up the game. So I'm taking Lake Travis. I think they're actually going to be on the comeback this year. They were very dominant not too long ago. They've been a little, I don't want to say struggling. They've been in the playoffs, but they haven't been in the deep playoff run in a while. So I think this is their year. Lake Travis, I think, will pull off the victory against Rockwall.
Yeah, Lake Travis, obviously a powerhouse in the state of Texas down there in Austin, but I'm going to go with Rockwall. I'm going to go with Brayden Locke. You talked about his turnovers. I think he'll be on this game. I think week 1, it was, he made a lot of mistakes. I think he's learned from it. I think he's going to progress just more and more. Like you said, he's just a gamer. He can throw the ball. He can play. He throws around the park. They're not afraid to throw it 50 times in the game. Rockwall loves to throw that ball. They'll run it every once in a while, but they live and die by that passing game. So I'm going to go, and hopefully they can live by that passing game and win. Rockwall, I say 7 points. I think it'll be a 1 possession game. But Lake Travis, they're not going to make it easy at all. They're going to blitz on the outside. They're going to have a little twist stunts with their defensive linemen. They love to do that. So it's going to be a really interesting matchup.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be honestly probably the game of the week.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best game. There's so many top teams playing each other this week again.
Yeah.
Again, it's
Yes.
Texas high school football. Every week's going to be tough.
Yep.
All right, so we have 3 more games left on the pick'em. This next one, so Ennis versus Waxahachie. Waxahachie's trying to come back. They seem to have some pieces. Ennis barely lost to that Fossil Ridge team that's on the come up. Barely won, 36-29. They got the W. But Fossil Ridge's backup quarterback was playing in that game, and they only lost by 7 to Ennis. But Ennis, 4 rounds deep last year. What do you think of this game?
Yeah, there's upsets for a reason, and they happen all the time. It's not happening with this. Ennis, I think they're, again, another school that's very well established. Last year, they had a great playoff run. I was actually expecting them to play Lovejoy, who I was excited to see them play. But I'm taking Ennis in this one. I think it'll be a good game, but I've got Ennis at least by 2 possessions, I'm going to say. Waxahachie, they're on the rise. They've got plenty of talent, but I would not be surprised if next week I look back and it's an upset, because like I said, upsets happen all the time, and Waxahachie team has the talent to pull off an upset, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think Ennis has a lot of guys. They're loaded this year. They've established themselves as a name. I think Ennis gets this victory, and I think it's probably 2 or 3 touchdowns against Waxahachie. So moving on, last 2 games. All right, so this 9th one, Grand Prairie versus Mesquite. Now, both these teams are on the rise. Grand Prairie, they're 1-1. Week 1, they win by a lot. Week 2, they lose by 7 to McKinney Boyd. And Boyd's a really well-rounded football team. They lost by 7 in the last minutes of that game. So Grand Prairie's competing this year. And you have a team in Mesquite that's trying to make that rise. Who do you have in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to have to stick with I believe they're the Gophers of Grand Prairie, right? Yeah, so I'm going to stick with Grand Prairie. I think they just, I don't know. I grew up in South Grand Prairie as well, so it's kind of like a little love there. But I'm going to stick with the Gophers. They're a team that I believe could actually make the playoffs this year, and unfortunately for the other guys, just you're on the rise. It's going to take time to do that, and yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said like I knew much about these teams. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot, but I'm going to take Grand Prairie in this one. I have seen some highlight film from them, and I like what I've seen. Like I said, I think they're going to be a shocker. I think they can make the playoffs as a lower seed, but I think the Gophers take a dub at this one.
Yeah, Grand Prairie, they have their SMU commit, Savion Red. He's so talented. He's playing quarterback this year. He's just really physical, and he's just all around athlete. I think Grand Prairie is going to win this game. Uh, as they call themselves, the G will come down with this victory.
Yeah.
I love the culture they're building there. They're doing a really good job, and I think they're going to turn a lot of heads. That close loss against, I know they'll look at it as a loss, but I think that there's a lot of positivity to come out of that loss because, you're on the rise. You competed with a team that's well known, a team that's got some pieces, and, you almost beat them. So I think they're on the rise and they get the dub here. So the last teams we're going to talk about, Arlington High versus Keller Fossil Ridge. This is the last one right here. Keller Fossil Ridge on the rise. Logan Cundiff has arrived, and I didn't see him in the stat books last week. I'm not sure what happened, if he was injured or not, or what's going on with that situation, but I think he'll be playing this week. And Arlington High, they've been 3 rounds deep the last 3 or 4 years. So what do you think about this game?
It's going to be a good game. This is going to be another close one, but I'm going to give it to Arlington High. I think they've had that repetition of going in the playoffs, having a great season. I believe this is going to be another good season for them. And it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a close game. All these games are close. But Fossil Ridge, yes, they are on the rise. They, I believe, could shock in their division as well. They're in a tough division. Same with Arlington, with Martin. But I'm going to take the Colts with a dub in this one. Just like I said, got to stick it with what my gut's feeling. So.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Keller Fossil Ridge in this one. Defensive line is stacked. They are really physical. I like the way they play. I think this is going to be a really close game, though. It could go either way. It could be either team. I like Landon Chambers, the running back. He's rushed for 400 yards in 2 games. Just very impressive on the ground. I'm not sure what's going on with Logan Cundiff, but I didn't see him in the stat books. It may be in a mistake with the website. I'm not sure with the stats, but Logan Cundiff's the real deal. He's just a sophomore. He led them to that game winner against a very tough Azle team that went 9-1 last year. So I think Keller Fossil Ridge, but by a slim margin.
It's going to be a close one.
So that'll wrap up our pick'ems for week 3 of Texas high school football. We're going to get Kenny into this process next week, and we're going to have an overall record and see who can pick the most games right. It's going to be something fun that we do. Chase, any last shout-outs that you have before we wrap this up?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, just another great week. I'm actually going to be staying in the same stadium as last week. I'll be doing Keller versus LD Bell, 2 smaller schools, but Keller's on the rise. They back-to-back victories. They've got a very young team that I think, again, they're in a very tough division with South Lake and Timber Creek and Fossil Ridge. But the Indians, I'm going to see what they've got this week. But I'm very excited to see that Collieville Euless game. I'm not going to cover it, but I'm definitely going to be keeping tabs on it. So it's going to be another great week, and I'm hoping all my predictions are right. So don't let me down, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I hope my predictions are right too, but you never know. It's Texas high school football. Anything happens. Some of these games are just insane in the level of competition. But a shout out I'm gonna give a shout out. Obviously, we talked about him earlier, but Damian Martinez, he deserves it. Just very impressive. Like you say, he's a really great kid. When you talk to him, he's really down to earth, has a good attitude, and he's gonna do some special things in Oregon State. You have to believe
Oh yeah.
that. And then my last shout out, I'm gonna give a shout out to Kaden Anderson. Another close game. They get that huge dub against Rockwall Heath. I'm gonna give a shout out to him. He's getting more experience, and I think he's gonna be something special this season. Think Southlake can make another run possibly with him.
Oh yeah. I do want to give one more shout out. I wasn't really thinking this is the college guys, but JoJo Earl, Seth Hennigan, they all made their college debuts this past week. And I actually watched the Alabama game and saw JoJo catch a couple passes. Just as, you can say it as a reporter, it's kind of cool to watch these guys at a high school level, talk to them, and now see them do it at the biggest stage, or the second biggest stage, I guess you could say. It's kind of cool. I will say it's a different feeling when you look back and you see you interviewed them and you're talking to them. Now they're playing for a national championship team, I believe. So to every high school, Texas high school alumni that debuted their college this past week, congrats. Whether y'all won or lost, it's still very exciting to see y'all on the next big stage.
Yeah, it was really cool to watch a lot of guys, that we've covered in the past, as well as guys I've played with. I got a chance to watch some of my guys like Malik Knowles, Brandon Nettles, Blake Lotus, some guys from Lake Ridge that I played with. It's really cool. Jason Bean on Thursday getting Kansas's first win to snap the longest losing streak in college football. So, shout out to all my guys who I played with, as well as, Blake Lotus as well. So those guys and Zach Jackson, they all played their first week this week and, did a really good job. And then the last shout out I'll give Kewan Lacey and TJ Williams of Nolan Catholic for their huge victory. Just outstanding performance. TJ Williams, senior quarterback, he just willed himself into the end zone many times. He's not the biggest, but he's not afraid to lay the wood around, and he did that to get his team the victory. So a shout out to him.
Yes, sir. And Jason Witten won his first head coach game as a head coach. So if you're a Dallas Cowboys fans, it's pretty cool to see the greatest tight end in Cowboys history do what he's doing. So there's a lot of shout outs to give. So much has happened in the past week or two. So this is why Texas high school football, I believe, is arguably one of the best sports.
Definitely. There was a lot of great teams this week that showed out, a lot of good games. Some teams came up short, but this week we'll be back at it. And you can subscribe to the Friday Night Glory YouTube channel, as well as the Friday Night Glory blog, FridayNightGloryBlog.com, blogger.com. It's always a pleasure. And, follow us for updates. Chase will be out at the LD Bell versus Keller game Thursday. I'll be at Lake Ridge versus Denton Geyer at Newsom. And thank you guys for tuning in from the We Got You Covered podcast. Thank y'all so much. Signing out. Thanks, Chase.
Yes, sir. See y'all next week.